あれは竜神よ。伝説が本当のことだったなんて。
この姿を生み出したのは実に久方ぶりである。どうだ、人の目から見ておかしなところはないか？
あ、はい。すごくお美しいです。
ならばよい。では人の子よ、その酒と地層をよこすがいい。
え、このカツ丼ですか？でも僕
Welcome to Japan, Miss Elf. Did the magic of episode 1 wear off on episode 2? And I'm here to report absolutely not. Episode 2 was just as good as episode 1, but for vastly different reasons. First off, it introduced the fact that yes, they can travel back to the other well, we're going to call it the dream world at this point, but they can travel back to the dream world. It does involve them needing to cuddle up and be very close the same way, be touching and everything else like they were the first time when they originally got transported. It also does, it also put into perspective that Kazuhiro can only transfer things that are, I don't even know what you call it. Basically, he can only transfer food and drinks. I guess like perishables. He's trying to take other things like phones, electronics, pens, paper, things like that. Doesn't work. The only thing that he can transfer to his world is food and drink. And the way that he does it is by putting it next to his bed. He doesn't actually need to be holding it, unlike having to hold Miss Elf, which is an interesting thing. What they speculated, both Elf and Kazuhiro together, mostly Miss Elf, was there must be somebody that it has dominion over what happens and doesn't happen, like an administrator or somebody who's in control over Kazuhiro being able to come here. And she also speculates that he must have this specific power for a purpose. But because he's been coming since childhood, he has no idea if he was ever actually told or a purpose maybe presented itself. He's not really sure of that. He just knows that as long as back as he can remember when he was a kid, he's just been able to travel to this world. And the whole time he's just been thinking that obviously it was a dream world. It's just something that just happens to him every single night. You would think that eventually someone would put two and two together, but unfortunately he did not. So totally okay there. So it basically established all those different things within the world, which I really, really love. It also established an additional character in the dragon. So, and the dragon finding its dragon form was really cool as well too. Now that was also speculated during the conversation with Elf and Kazuhiro, as he was trying to find out more about the dragon's personality. Obviously he's been spending a lot of time in this world, so he basically thought like, hey, what if you can talk to the dragon just like he can the orcs or the other not animals, but the other creatures in this world, how they have their own linguistics and language, everything. What if he could talk to him and interact with the dragon just like that? And based on the elf story, he comes to find that this dragon actually took a humanoid form and went to a town before, had an interest in beer. So he was like, okay, we're gonna offer this dragon beer, because the moment we get transferred back to this world, we're gonna be back in the same situation we were before. That all came true. I really love to see it. The dragon was able to actually, talk back and forth. And eventually we did see its humanoid form. Very weird, as the dragon didn't actually transform. The dragon just actually, she threw up like magic essentially, and she created another alternate form to herself. So it's hard to say if her essence got transferred into this humanoid form or if she's both at the same time. It's really hard to speculate on the reason that it decided to do it that way, and also like how exactly that works. But I thought that was a really, really cool thing. And it explains the 𝐸𝐷. The 𝐸𝐷 is awesome. I love the 𝐸𝐷 a lot. It shows Elf in a ton of different scenarios and outfits. And it also shows the dragon as well, playing volleyball and all kinds of other things. So it also explains the 𝐸𝐷 as the dragon being like that third companion potentially for Kazuhiro and Miss Elf, as everything kind of continues on. The other thing that was really awesome about this episode as well, too, was learning more about what happened to this ancient civilization that they've been traveling in, the ruins and everything. Basically, we come to find out that the dragon essentially wiped that civilization out, because every 1,000 years, the arc dragon, which is what this dragon is, she lays her eggs. Now, it's hard to say how that happens. Is it just magic that she births, 1 to 3 to 4 dragons every 1,000 years? Is there a Mr. Dragon somewhere else? It's very hard to really determine on how that happens. Typically, there's some kind of inception that needs to occur for the eggs to happen. Does that happen? We don't even know. So that's going to be something that, hopefully we get answered later on. And then the last thing is, after they travel to that world to get back, Kazuhiro's like, okay, we got to go back to sleep kind of thing. And unfortunately, they didn't show that at the end of the episode if they're going to be successful in going to sleep. And if Elf can come back with him in that way, so basically he just needed to have slept with someone to bring them back to his world the whole entire time. Or if there does need to be like an external factor like death, like before. Again, it's very hard to say exactly how that's going to end up working out. And I would have loved for them to end on them being transferred back to Japan as opposed to where it got cut off. But regardless, this was like a 9 out of 10 episode. I loved everything. It brought up a ton of questions for me. It brought up, more wanting to know more about the dragon, more about the dragon reproducing, more about what happens after the dragon actually gives birth and the eggs, actually bear fruit. What has happened to those dragons? Because it's every 1,000 years. So there was dragons before. So where's her previous children at? Is there a Mr. Dragon? That's a question. Are Elf and Kazuhiro going to be able to travel back without dying and just truly just sleeping? What are the limitations of what he can and cannot bring? Is there an administrator somewhere? Who exactly brought him? Was it God? Was it some other external factor? And because he's been on this mission now for it seems like around 20 years plus at this point, what was his mission, right? Why hasn't he been reminded of said mission if he actually had one? Because he may not have accomplished it, was just thinking this was a dream world the whole entire time. And now that Miss Elf can come back with him back and forth, what is this going to mean for the dream world story along with his real world one? Because in his real world, he's gonna have to work and support himself. Basically, he's still gonna have to live normal life along with Miss Elf. So it just a lot of questions, but I am pleased to be able to go through, hopefully those questions being answered over time as we get to enjoy the next 10 episodes of Welcome to Japan. So awesome episode. Really enjoyed it quite a bit. Sorry for this review being late. I was on vacation. I'll see you guys for episode number 3 next week. Have a good one. Peace out, my friends.